Welcome back to Mr. K Thinks About Stuff. And today I'm talking about having some tenacity in the search for truth. Don't just give in, is what I think the title of this video is. You know what the title of this video is because you clicked on it, but I think the title is going to be something like Don't Just Give In. And what I want to talk about is I was having a conversation earlier today. And one of the things that got brought up was we were having a discussion where the different sides of the discussion, we really had different ideas about how the world worked, how reality works. I mean, we really didn't agree. And there was some sentiment in a way that the problem wasn't finished after our discussion, and that there were people involved in the discussion that hadn't made up their mind yet, hadn't really nailed down where they fell, and that was somehow was it a good discussion if people didn't leave the discussion having an answer. And what I want to propose is that it's actually probably more common for a good discussion to end without everyone coming to a satisfying conclusion. There's truth is hard to get to. It can really, it takes time, and it takes courage and tenacity, and it really takes a lot of willingness to be wrong and to think of yourself as wrong and to desire to correct that. And that's hard. That's incredibly hard. And so I would say that, and it's not just me, but I'm the one making the YouTube video. So I would say that don't be discouraged if you have a long discussion and you finish the discussion and you think, well, I still don't know. Of course you don't yet. That was one discussion. And even when you get to a point where you think, okay, I've kind of got a handle on this, there's so much that you don't yet fully understand with it. So let me ground the whole thing. So I've got really kind of three big things. The first thing I want to talk about is the truth is complicated. Number one, the truth is complicated. There's a lot going on. We have, well, maybe I should make a video about that sometime, but we really have we have objective realities. We have our own subjective understanding and experience of those realities. And we have the relationships between things, the sort of the relative things that tease out when realities bump into each other. Well, that's a lot. That's a big old complicated thing. And so of course you don't. You should almost be surprised that you would end a conversation and know what you're talking about. Think about something, and we're talking we were having a discussion about the fabric of reality. We were right in there. But think about this. When you take a class on something, say you're taking a college course on something, you spend a whole semester on Biology 101. Now, biology is rather complicated and robust, and we know a lot of things. It's nowhere near the level of fabric of reality as far as importance. And so we fully tolerate the idea that you would study biology for years before you would say, I really know biology. Years of studying for that. And somehow we get the idea that when we have philosophic discussions, or I guess even political discussions, or theological discussions, religious discussions, these kinds of things that are less tangible, I think we sometimes have this weird tendency to think that those are less complicated somehow, or easier to think. And maybe it's because we're just so convinced about what we think. So we all think we're experts when we're all more or less beginners. There are very few of us who are experts at politics. There are very few of us that are experts at theological discussions. There are very few experts in philosophy and things like that. And the people who are experts get there by years of blood, sweat, and tears, going, questioning themselves and thinking about things and finding out they're wrong and finding out what everyone else thought about that and why they thought each other were wrong or right about different things, and then testing stuff and then talking to other people and finding out that you're still wrong. There's still things you don't understand and can't account for. And so you keep digging, and it's a lot. It's a heck of a lot to wrap your mind around and to spend that much time. And so let's just give truth its due. Truth is complicated. And we almost insult truth when we think that we should get it by now. Well, no, it's a beast. It's like don't underestimate a bull. If you're going to be in a rodeo and you don't underestimate the bull, or you're going to find yourself flat on your back real quick. You got to respect the bull. You got to respect it for what it is. It's a beast, and it's going to fight back, and it's going to be complicated. One of the things I like to bring up with my philosophy students is Plato. So Plato's name wasn't Plato. That's not actually his given name. If I remember correctly, his real name is Aristarchus. Plato was what people called. And I've been told that this isn't something we necessarily know exactly why he's called Plato. There's at least a story that was his name in the ring as a wrestler. I can't vouch for that fact. What I can tell you is that Plato means broad, so it probably means something like broad-shouldered or something like that. Regardless, the story, I can't vouch for the historical accuracy of that. But I think it illustrates something that I do like to bring up. Is that if you think of the way Plato writes, he doesn't write treatises. What we have from Plato isn't his treatises. It's stories. It's these complicated narratives of things. And it's not always immediately obvious what he's getting at, or what he thinks, or is this what this character thinks, or the characters are fighting, or a lot of them end in aporia, or this unsettledness. This we know we haven't found the answer, but we don't really know where to go from here. Really common in Plato. And I always tell my students, because Plato wants you to fight with him. He wants you to fight back. He wants you to have some tenacity, to care a little bit more, to go seeking, to argue with him, to prove him wrong. Talk to these characters. Talk to the people around you. Read Plato together and fight about it. Get in the ring with Plato. Because philosophy, really coming to know truth deeply is not achieved by just being told things. You have to wrestle with it yourself. You have to satisfy that need within your humanity to get it, to really get it at your core, and not just assent to it. After a little bit of time, you just say, oh, yeah, I believe that. And it's like, well, do you? What does it mean in your life that you believe that? Do you say you believe this, but you live in a way that is totally contradictory to it? Well, then I guess I don't really know how much you believe it, or I don't know what you mean by belief. If you claim to believe something and your life is a complete mess in the other direction, you have to really fight for it. And you'll never grasp it all. It's a lifelong thing. And it's worth fighting for. Like, think about all the things in your life that are valuable and how much work you have to do to achieve them. If you want to own a company, you got to do all kinds of work to do that. If you want to learn a foreign language, you got to work real hard. If you want to learn biology, you got to work hard and long hours. If you want to build something, build a shed or a house, you got to work long hours. If you want to do anything worthwhile, it is always predicated on a lot of hard work. And, I think of the anecdote of someone going to this artist and asking them to design something. And they, the artist whips it out in about an hour. And they come back and the artist says, cool, that'll be $100. And the person's like, whoa, what do you mean? He goes, well, I charge $100 an hour. And it took me an hour to come up with this logo. And the person says, well, if you can do it that easily, why should I pay you $100 if it wasn't that hard for you? And the artist responds, you're paying me $100 because I spent years getting skilled enough that it's easy now. You're paying for years of effort so that I could become the kind of person who can whip this out in an hour. And it's true, we take for granted all these wonderful things sometimes. And there's something to it where we feel either entitled to the truth, or we just don't value it, or it can be hard because it's not tangible. It's not obvious that, if you understand some fundamental whatever, that it's going to have an immediate effect on your day-to-day. It's kind of the same stuff. Like, if you want to become stronger or faster or skinnier or whatever, like, your first time on the treadmill is not gonna see results. It's a constant, intentional, really a lifestyle of pursuing this thing that brings you to really where you can sit down and say you've achieved something. And philosophy is no different. It's a life lived. It's an integrated part of your life, is the pursuit for truth. And it will yield results, but it will yield results that are commensurate with the amount of time and effort you put into it, like everything else. And so if you really want truth, then don't just give in. Really fight for it. Really question the things that you hear from other people and read in other books, and the things you say, and the things that you think and write, and have this constant desire to get to know it better. We don't fight with arguments because nothing's true. We push back against arguments. We fight with them because we think there is something true that's worth getting and it's worth fighting for.